They were trapped behind the walls, shadows deep where silence calls. Broke the chains and they stood tall, found their voices after all. Laura, search in order to Liz Farah shining through. Lost the fear, found something new. Now I know it's really true. They are free, they're warriors strong, singing their own freedom songs. You can join them, come along, break away where you belong. Leave the cult, yeah, it's a cult. Word clear cult, leave the cult. It's a scam, they just want your money. Save your money, you can really be free without OTs. Maybe OTs, maybe look into the atrocities, abuses of Scientology. All of right in front of you, it's all with you. Take your blinders off, save yourself. Leave the cult, they just want your money. Save your money, you can really be free.
What's up? So, today we're going to do something different. We're going to go away from the meetings. It might be a shorter stream than usual, but I was reading some stuff, and this is going to be straight from the cult itself. The stuff that I'm going to read to you is from L. Ron Hubbard's words himself, and we're going to break down how a lot of it is very hypocritical. And some of it does make sense, but they they say certain things to sort of get people in. So obviously some things have to make sense. But um now this is everywhere on the internet. You can search it, Scientology Code of Honor, and it was written in 1954, and there was an introduction to it that says, "No one expects the code of honor to be closely and tightly followed. An ethical code cannot be enforced. Any effort to enforce the code of honor would bring it into the level of a moral code. It cannot be enforced simply because it's a way of life, which can exist as a way of life only as long as it is not enforced." I'm going to just stop there. Notice how L. Ron Hubbard did all this like tricky stuff when he wrote stuff. So I'm not going to read long period or long paragraphs of his stuff because I can see where he's getting in people's minds with the way that he does his words, and that's really scary. But that's why so many people in Scientology are in it and in it for life, because the way these things are worded, and he gets in your head and he does these like run on sentences. But that introduction part isn't super important except to point that out. But there's how many of there's 15 of these for the code of honor. And I thought a lot of these were very interesting because they don't seem to be what they follow. So, number one, never desert a comrade in need, in danger, or in trouble. Okay, so that sounds good, and they actually are following that. Like comrade would be someone on their side. Um, Number two, never withdraw allegiance once granted. So they have to be allegiant to Scientology and, you know, all the Scientologists and all that stuff. Okay. Number three, never desert a group to which you owe your support. So it's just building that, you have to defend Scientology. You can't desert Scientology. You can never leave Scientology because it's a group that you owe your support. Number four, never disparage yourself or minimize your strength or power. Now, this is where it gets interesting to me because they, the way I see it is they have a lot of groupthink, and it's weird to hear them talk about themselves. I I don't see that as a Scientology thing. Like they're supposed to not think about themselves, right? And think about Scientology and, L. Ron and David Miscavige first, but that's just the beginning of it where it gets weird. Okay. Number 5, never need praise, approval, or sympathy. So that's another way that they're like getting it in their head that they don't need to, be praised. So they're not worth being praised when they do a good job or, you know, even having sympathy for, like they're lowering their self worth with that. Number 6, never compromise with your own reality. Now, that makes no sense to me. Like, um, don't they try to like brainwash you and stuff like that? So they don't want you to have your own reality. They want you to have their reality. But in their code of honor, it says number 6, never compromise with your own reality. Now, number 7, I don't really even understand. It says never permit your affinity to be alloyed. So, if anyone in the chat has any idea what alloyed means in the sense, ALLOYED, never permit your affinity to be alloyed, I don't know. Um, Number 8, do not give or receive communication unless you yourself desire it. So, what happened to communication's a universal solvent, but don't give or receive communication unless you yourself desire it. But really, they're also being silenced when people do want to talk. They can't because of Scientology. Yeah, like I don't know. That's what I think that alloy means. But yeah, it said never permit your affinity to be alloyed. But they do that tricky stuff. The way that L. Ron Hubbard wrote the stuff is it's all like a part of my language, but it's a mind fuck. And he's like, I don't know, the repetitiveness, all that stuff. Okay, number 9, your self-determination and your honor are more important than your immediate life. Let that sink in for a second. Okay. Your self-determinism and your honor are more important than your immediate life. Like, L. Ron Hubbard's basically telling people that your life doesn't matter. You just have to be self determined and you gotta, and your honor basically is your loyalty and dedication to Scientology. So you got to do everything for Scientology, and that's more important than your immediate life. Like, and this is on their their literature and stuff that you don't have to pay for or whatever. This is just out front what they themselves are telling you about who they are. I don't understand how I don't understand how someone could be okay with that. I could not be okay with someone saying that anything really is more important than my immediate life. I mean, for me, with my beliefs, God is more important than my immediate life in a sense, but not in the sense that they're talking about. So I don't even, that's just bizarre to me. Number 9 of the code of honor. And then we got number 10. Your integrity to yourself is more important than your body. So your integrity is more important than your body. So you can get hurt, you can get killed, whatever. That's more important. Or I mean that's less important than your integrity. So as long as your integrity, and it's their definition of integrity and what matters to them, is more important than your body. Number 11, never regret yesterday. Life is in you today, and you make your tomorrow. I really actually agree with number 11 of the Code of Honor. Like, that sounds really in line with what I believe. Never regret yesterday. Life is in you today, and you make your tomorrow. But at the same time, that's what he did. He wrote stuff to draw people in. And that sounds so normal and correct to me, where, like something else might jump out to some other person, like there's a lot of different techniques that were mixed into one so that it could reach so many different audiences. And that's the one right there, 11, that caught my eye. Um, Number 12, never fear to hurt another in a just cause. So in this, L. Ron Hubbard is endorsing hurting people if it's for a just cause. And what is a just cause? What would they define? They could keep changing it all the time. It could be whatever they say. So don't fear to hurt someone if we tell you that there's a reason for it. And this is supposed to be a religion. They claim they're a religion. This does not sound like any religion that I recognize as a religion, that I know of as a religion. I'm telling people, and like I said, this is very upfront in their literature. This isn't like hidden or anything. Like, I'm sure when you're joining and you're looking into it and you go to their website, you can see it. And they're telling you, for a just cause, don't fear hurting someone. It's okay to hurt someone. And then number 13, don't desire to be liked or admired. So again, it's like knocking their ego down and everything to be, controlled more, because you don't need to be admired or liked or complimented or given credit for something. You don't need, any of that. Don't desire that. But that's sort of weird that it's like right under the never fear to hurt another in a just cause. Like, it's just so weird how it jumps between different topics. And um number 14, be your own advisor, keep your own counsel, and select your own decisions. Isn't it crazy when we hear that L. Ron Hubbard wants people to think for themselves? Like, and be your own advisor and keep your own counsel, select your own decisions. Like, that makes no sense with what we know about Scientology. And then the last one on this list is be true to your own goals. But they have a different definition of goals because it's not your own goals, because your own goals are their goals. Like, it, I don't know, but it was weird finding this list. And at the bottom of it, it says, this is the ethical code of Scientology. The code one uses not because he has to, but can, but because he can afford such a luxury. So they're saying that you don't even have to follow this code, but you can afford to. If you can afford to, it's a luxury. And then when I was looking at this, it led me down a rabbit hole. Okay. So there's more to this. There's the code of a Scientologist. And this was written in 1954. And it provides a Scientologist with guidelines for fighting for human rights and justice through social reform. It was a vital code for any Scientologist active in the community. The code was revised in 1969 and again in 1973 and is given here in its final version. So I guess there were a few edits or whatever, but um, it says at the top, as a Scientologist, I pledge myself to the code of Scientology for the good of all. And number one, to keep Scientologists, the public, and the press accurately informed concerning Scientology, the world of mental health, and society. So I don't know how many of you guys see the CPRAs, but they they've been requesting CPRAs themselves, and they've been trying to get information on people that they're saying are putting misinformation out there about them. And then we know that they're safe pointing stuff. Janet and Jennifer's there working, and there's a bunch of them, but like they are told number one on the pledge that they have to keep everyone informed about Scientology. And then they mention mental health in their first one. And sometimes we forget about the mental health aspect of this fight. Like, we focus on the other stuff, what they're doing, specifically to the kids or the elders, but their views on mental health alone are enough to turn people away from Scientology if they just knew about it more. And back in the past, they used to talk about it way more, but it's sort of fading away. And I don't know, like, I feel a lot of us in the community either have some, connection somehow with a family member or ourselves or a friend, or we knew someone. Like, everyone is touched by mental health issues. And the fact that they're so against help for that, like, and that's like their number one thing is to make sure everyone knows their views about it. But I think we should let people know their views about it a bit more too. And moving down to number two, to use the best I know of Scientology to the best of my ability to help my family, friends, groups, and the world. So those are like those different dynamics that they talk about. And I don't even know. I'm not even going to try because I'm going to say some wrong stuff. But there's like possibly 8 dynamics. And then 3, to refuse to accept for processing and to refuse to accept money from any pre-clear or group I feel I cannot help or cannot honestly help. That one makes no sense to me. Hold on. To refuse to accept for processing and to refuse to accept money from any pre-clear or group I feel I cannot honestly help. Like, I guess maybe that's that thing where they say you got to get something out of everything. So, like, if you give something to someone, they got to give something to you. I vaguely remember hearing that from an ex-Scientologist. I forget who, but there's something where if you if you say if you give someone something, they got to return it. It has to be equal. Oh, since Laura's in here, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, because my main thing is to get out what I can, but I don't want to put out any misinformation. So if you could help me out with that, if you hear anything. Um, but yeah, it says to refuse to accept for processing, which I don't know their definition of processing. It's probably a Scientology specific definition. And then it says, and to refuse to accept money from any pre-clear or group I feel I cannot honestly help. But if you can help them, you can accept the money from them, right? I don't know. But something like out exchange is something like that. I just vaguely remember that. So okay. We're on to number 4. To decry and do all I can to abolish any and all abuses against life and mankind. Now, think of all the abuses and the atrocities that Scientology itself is responsible for. This one basically is saying, decry and do all I can to abolish all of that, because those are abuses against life and against mankind. So, number 4 in their Code of a Scientologist, written by L. Ron Hubbard himself, whose words they're supposed to follow, they're supposed to be decrying and doing all they can to get rid of these abuses. So, why aren't they doing what L. Ron Hubbard said? If they're so brainwashed to listen to the dude's words, right there, it tells them, to go against the abuse. But again, they have a different definition for everything. And their definition of abuses would probably be stuff that just goes against Scientology. Um, I don't know. Like, number 4 stood out to me a whole lot with all those abuses going on. All right, number 5, to expose and help abolish any and all physically damaging practices in the field of mental health. So, right after number 4, they bring this up. And it makes me think of the physically damaging practices that I've heard about Scientology in their view of mental health and how they deal with mental health. There's a lot of stuff they do or they don't do that is very physically damaging. So, again, in L. Ron Hubbard's own words, they should be exposing and abolishing these physically damaging practices within Scientology itself. And I I don't know why they don't. Like, this is a code of a Scientologist. I don't know how important this code is, but you're like pledging, and I'm sure you have to like sign this or something. And number 6, to help clean up and keep clean the field of mental health. Again, with the mental health, they have no right to speak on mental health. They're more about mental damage. Like, I don't understand why people inside are are still inside, and just letting the abuses go and being involved in the abuses themselves. And I don't get that. Number 7, to bring about an atmosphere of safety and security in the field of mental health by eradicating its abuses and brutality. More of the same. Like, this is, I don't know. This is on their website. So it's sort of like entry level, not hidden. I They're saying, as a Scientologist, I pledge myself. They like to sign stuff. I assume this is something that they sign. I don't know if people read it. Um, but yeah, this is on their website. So it's easy to find. It's not like it's hidden. It's not like it's something they have to pay for before hearing. It's not something they have to buy into. This is like free upfront knowledge of what they're putting out that they like believe in. And then we're on number 8, to support true humanitarian endeavors in the fields of human rights. But we've seen like all the stuff that they do that's violating human rights, allegedly. But they pledge to support true humanitarian endeavors. And if people are, like, for instance, protesting and trying to fight for the rights of the people in the Sea Org people could look at number 8 and support those humanitarian endeavors, because these people are fighting for human rights, specifically theirs. Like, I don't know, but there's 20 of them, so I'll sort of run through a bunch of these sort of fast. 9, to embrace the policy of equal justice for all. So, equal justice for all, yet we've seen how they always try to stack the deck against their enemy, and even perceived enemies, people that aren't even really going after them or anything. They try to stack the deck. And that doesn't seem like equal. 10, to work for freedom of speech in the world. Unless you're speaking out against Scientology, and then they're totally against that. Number 11, to actively decry the suppression of knowledge, wisdom, philosophy, or data which would help mankind. In my opinion, Scientology is guilty of doing this, of suppressing knowledge and wisdom and philosophy and data. And they might have a different definition of suppression, but I think suppression would be something like making you, like, hiding stuff behind a paywall, making you pay to know certain knowledge would be suppressing it, because you'd have to have enough money to pay for that. And what if you don't? So wouldn't that be suppression of knowledge, wisdom, philosophy, or data? Number 12, to support the freedom of religion. 13, to help Scientology orgs and groups ally themselves with public groups. So basically, this is like safe pointing and everything, and that's what they're doing at City Hall and what they're doing with neighborhood councils. And they're just, like, there's different, I forget what it's called, but there's like this group where it's different churches in the area, an interfaith group, like they safe point, and that's number 13 on this code of a Scientologist. Number 14, to teach Scientology at a level that can be understood and used by the recipients. Well, I don't know. Like it's I don't know. Imma just pass on that one. 15, to stress the freedom to use Scientology as a philosophy in all its applications and variations in the humanities. Now, from what I heard, if you use Scientology, but you don't use it in the way they say, that's called squirreling the technology. And, that's what the squirrel thing is. It's about using Scientology, but without it being Scientology. That's like the people that are sort of like ex-Scientologists, but they're still doing like the auditing and stuff like that. That that would be the same thing. And this is saying to stress the freedom to use Scientology in all its applications and variations. So I know they're against that. They don't want the people that leave to still use their technology and stuff like that. But they're they're saying to stress the freedom to do that. Number 16, to insist upon standard and unvaried Scientology as an applied activity in ethics, processing, and administration in Scientology organizations. I don't know. Number 17, to take my share of responsibility for the impact of Scientology upon the world. So, when you become a Scientologist, as a Scientologist, you pledge to take your share of responsibility for the impact of Scientology. So, when, everything comes crumbling down, is that what they want, for them to take credit and all that? Because I don't see any like positive impact, but even if there is, didn't it say that you aren't supposed to ask for admiration or want, credit for stuff? But then you are supposed to like take credit for the impact of Scientology upon the world? And then 18, to increase the numbers and strength of Scientology over the world. So that's where they're recruiting everyone. 19, to set an example of the effectiveness and wisdom of Scientology. And number 20, to make this world a saner, better place. But they don't believe in therapy. They don't believe in medications. But in their code, the Code of a Scientologist, written by L. Ron Hubbard, number 20 says, to make this world a saner, better place. And that just shows how they must have a different definition for what sane is. Now, there's other ones on here that are more, I don't know, more tailored to certain things. They have like the auditor, the code of the auditor, and um what was that one? They had a executive code, um, or no, a supervisor code, and then let's go to the, I don't know, the auditors one is weird, but I just want to point out one of them at the end. Um, so when you're an auditor, I'm sure you have to sign this or something, and this is like, again, written by L. Ron Hubbard, and the final version was published in June of 1980, and it's in Dianetics, the original thesis. And it says, like, I hereby promise as an auditor to follow the auditor's code, but they have one on here that towards the bottom that's really, it says number 28. I promise not to permit sexual liberties or violations of patients. I myself have no physical evidence or proof. So I gotta just say, allegedly, but I've heard of stuff going on that totally goes against that. So what happens when someone breaks this? What happens when, like they do violate someone during an audit session, or like they have their arbitration on the inside, but we know they don't report it to the police. But there's like 29 on this auditor's code, and it's very tailored just toward auditors. So I'm not going to run through this, but all of this can be found on Scientology.org. Like, this is their upfront information. They have the credo of a true group member. So that has you doing the whole group think and everything. And, talking about the successful participant of a group is the participant who closely approximates in his own activities the ideal ethic and rationale of the overall group. And then it just goes on, and there's 18 of them, but it's all about giving up yourself and thinking of the group. And okay, talking about this, okay, I've heard people say they wish that all the evil could be gone from the world, that it could just be all good. And my views on that are, without evil, good would not exist. We would not have any idea what good was because we would not have anything to contrast that to. So we kind of need some evil in this world so that we can appreciate the good and actually know what good is. Otherwise, the good would just be. It wouldn't be positive or negative. It would just be. So I wish there was less evil in this world, yes, but in order for good to exist, there still needs to be a little bit in this world, sadly. Um, but yeah, like, I don't want to read, some of these are more paragraph filled, and I don't want to read his words and hear the programming part of the words as I'm reading it. Like, I'm not trying to do that to any of you, but reading it's different than saying it out loud. I feel like hearing it out loud sort of makes it even more impactful. But again, this is stuff that they have on their out front literature when they're trying to get people in. And, you know, we saw in the Code of Honor, wasn't it the Code of Honor? I don't know. I'm lost now because we went through so many of these. Yeah, number 12 on the Code of Honor. Never fear to hurt another in a just cause. Like, that one really sticks with me, that they're just being so out there in public about, you know, it's okay to hurt someone if we say it's a just cause. And then the Code of the Scientologist, that one, like I said, there's a lot of these, but that one and the Code of Honor were the ones that really, I don't know, like, I had to do the stream after seeing this. Um, yeah, like, check it out. There's other ways to see it, I'm sure, without going to Scientology's site. Use a VPN. You don't have to be all paranoid, but still, don't, I don't know, do what you want, but I would use a VPN. But this is on their literature. This is what they don't make you pay for. And they're telling you to hurt people. And that made me, I'm not going to get into it, but that made me think of, what's it called? It's like R45 or something. It's, or is it R245? But it's like routine 245 or something. But it's like with the 45. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? There's this directive, and Elron spoke about it. Scientology. Yeah, R245. So this is an interesting thing to look up on Wikipedia if you haven't yet, but it's kind of more worrying than interesting. Um, I don't even want to talk too much about it, but it's basically saying that he said you could clear people with the 45 caliber. So that's why it's R245. Um, it it was in the book The Creation of Human Ability, and he describes two training routes with the exercises in route 1 numbered R1 to 4 to R1 to 15. Oh, R14 to R115. And the exercises in route 2 numbered R2 16 to R2 75. So there's a bunch of these that he lists, but this one, it it's sort of more out there because of how extreme it is. But it says R245 is simply described as an enormously effective process for exterioration, but its use is frowned upon by the society at this time. So he said it was like a good way to clear people, but that society frowns upon it. And, like, there's a lot of stuff. There's speculation when it was put into play where people did do R245. Um, some people will, some ex Scientologists have laughed it off when questioned about it and said, oh, that's not a thing. It's just a joke. Or I forget what the specific person's response was, but they made it seem like it wasn't really a thing. And they were in there for a long time, but also they said other things didn't happen. So maybe they just don't know. I don't know, but it could be a thing. Maybe it's not a thing. I'm just letting you know. I don't know, but it's on Wikipedia, R245. Um, there's a lot of things on Wikipedia. You can go through a rabbit hole if you haven't done that already. Scientology controversies, like all the stuff, like if you want to learn more about Paulette Cooper, there's so much stuff online. If you haven't heard about her and Operation Freakout, like if you go down the rabbit hole, there's just so much. And I know a lot of people in the community might think they know a lot, but I swear every never end can find something new that they did not know that is even crazier than anything that they've known before about Scientology. Like, there's just so many topics and, areas where there's allegedly bad stuff going on, but kind of want to wrap this up now. Uh, thank y'all for showing up. Really appreciate y'all. If y'all haven't liked the stream, please help the algorithm, help me out with that. Um, Yeah, sorry, Matt. Sorry that you just showed up. But replay crew, what's up? Thank you for staying this long. And I'll see y'all on the next stream.